Have you ever felt tired after a meeting with someone even though the conversation felt good at that moment? Have you ever felt pressured by your friend's words of encouragement instead of feeling relaxed? Why do some actions by our close persons often leave us feeling drained at the end? Carl Jung understood how connected these feelings are, and interestingly, these feelings are more common than you think. This was the situation a friend found himself in last year. Let's call him John. John was a great guy, a good heart, the kindest personality anyone could ever ask for. He had a girlfriend, Courtney, and they dated for 2 years. John was always full of praise for his girlfriend. I met her a few times and I thought she was amazing. She'd listen patiently as John spoke, even for hours. She had a really positive outlook on life and was easy to reason with on different issues. So I thought to myself that my friend had found a good lady to be with. But late last year, John called me one morning and delivered the news. He had called it quits with Courtney. I was shocked and was almost angry. When I asked him the reason, he simply said any time he was with her, he usually felt mentally tired after their meeting and he could no longer help it. It was strange and made me wonder how possible it is that the same person who brought him happiness could also wear him out that much. What does this tell us about the true state of connection we really have with people? We are socialized from an early age to crave social acceptance, and it is ingrained in the very nature of our existence. Our parents, for instance, took us to the park not merely for enjoyment, but so that we would blend in with other children. The message was straightforward. Getting along with others was crucial, so as not to draw attention to ourselves in a negative manner. Had we not interacted, we would be weird, and that would generally result in feelings of ostracism. In the same manner, we were supposed to welcome the new neighbor, to speak to them and make them feel at home. It was not merely a matter of being hospitable, it was a matter of performing the social expectation to act the part of the good neighbor, which in turn would cement our status in society. And then, once we got to school, there was the even greater force of social conformity. We sat with other kids who we didn't know, or who we didn't immediately click with, but with whom we had to be friendly. Or risk being teased for being weird, or worse, ignored altogether. As time passed, these experiences taught us that our social experiences weren't just opportunities for connection, but a means of seeking approval from others. We learned that we had to behave in ways that would win us acceptance and approval, or at least avoid rejection. This pattern continued as we grew older, where social validation became an almost unconscious objective. Seeking approval and interacting with others for the sake of their acceptance became an ingrained behavior. It was as though society gave us a rule book which read, "In order to be accepted, you will engage, connect, and people will like you." This notion of validation, of fitting in, was so deep-rooted that it dictated how we managed work relationships, workplaces, and even how we perceived ourselves. Our self-esteem began to rely, to a certain degree, on others' approval, wittingly or unwittingly. Jung, however, challenges this societal expectation in his writings. He argued that the idea of objective values, or the things we deem normal or acceptable, aren't inherently self-evident truths. In his words, the rational attitude which permits us to declare objective values as valid at all is not the work of the individual subject, but the product of human history. What he meant by this is that the values, norms, and beliefs we hold aren't innate or universally rational. They are the result of cultural conditioning, societal history, and collective experience. In simpler terms, what we consider normal isn't necessarily something we've personally arrived at through independent thought, but rather something that has been shaped by the historical context in which we live. This is significant because it has us take a step back and challenge the social norms that govern our behavior, most specifically, how we manage our energy. Social norms have us attempt to please others at the expense of our own well-being. We become so fixated on this idea of fitting in that we lose sight of our own needs, desires, and boundaries. Jung's commentary on the historical genesis of these values challenges us to question whether the patterns and behaviors we've adopted are really our own or simply a byproduct of hundreds of years of cultural expectation. Jung's writing on human energy introduces a further complication into this process. He noted that our energy, both emotional and psychic, is affected by these outside influences, but also by our own wills. Energy, for Jung, was not just a personal commodity, but something that moves between people and is affected by the quality of our relationships. Just as we gain energy from where we stand, we also lose energy when we are in a situation where we are attempting to seek approval, meet other people's expectations, or be someone other than who we are. This is where energy imbalance comes into play. When we are always reaching out to other people to seek their approval or acceptance, we end up giving more than we are taking. Getting approval from the outside world can be tiring, and we end up exhausted, anxious, or disconnected from our own being as human beings. In Jung's theory, this is taking place because we are unaware of the unconscious energy working its way through our lives. We are so busy playing other people's expectations that we don't take the initiative to create our own energy or honor our own boundaries. So that we may understand the true nature of our psychic energy, we first must understand what Jung meant when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This is an important word to understand how our inner life, that which lies hidden from us in the unconscious, constructs our lives and directs the way we live on this earth. Until we are conscious of our own psychic energy, what it is, how it acts, and how it acts around us, we will never know when our energy is being sucked from us. Only by making this awareness part of our way of living can we understand how our energy acts and how things happen when it's depleted. Jung saw our psychic energy as an ether-like life force that fuels our thoughts, feeling, creativity, and interactions. It is not one energy, but an active energy that moves between conscious and unconscious mind. Our mental and emotional states and behavior are all brought about by this constant exchange. There is an exchange of energy in each encounter, each conversation, each relationship. The problem arises when we fail to notice the imbalance of these exchanges. There are healthy relationships. Both of you leave feeling linked, fed, and alive. Others leave, and one is depleted, drained, or emotionally spent. Paying attention to these shifts of energy is the first step to knowing what is happening under the surface of interactions. Jung's concept of energy exchange mirrors one of the natural laws of physics, the law of entropy. Entropy, as it works in the physical world, causes energy to disperse and seek its own level. For example, body heat from warmer to cooler body flows from one body to the other until the bodies are of the same temperature. This leveling of energy is essential to the health of the system. In human relationships, psychic energy does the same thing. In an ideal situation, energy transfers between individuals equally. Each gives as much as and takes as much as the other, and all is exchanged harmoniously and reciprocally. When the exchange becomes unequal, however, one person will begin taking more energy than he or she is giving, and there is an energy-draining effect. At first, this imbalance is subtle. You might find you get a slight sense of discomfort or tiredness after spending time around a particular person, but easily dismiss this as temporary or immaterial. However, as this becomes the standard, the effect builds up, draining your mental and energy reserves. Over time, the initial subtle sensation of being exhausted builds up and becomes cumulative and full-blown exhaustion. The person draining more energy than they are putting in may become irrationally irritable or strung out or experience tiredness. They may no longer be able to maintain their usual level of creativity, enthusiasm, or emotional stability. They are burning their inner reserves and not replacing them. This is more than tiredness or exhaustion. It is an even deeper draining of energy that can seep right through to all areas of life. The recipient may become incapable of concentrating, of being able to be around people, or of staying enthusiastic about work or artistic pursuits. The draining effect may not always necessarily be immediate, and may take forms that are seemingly opposite to the interactions themselves. Maybe someone will suddenly hit a slump of energy after being around somebody who consistently takes more than they give. This feeling of depletion is indicative of an energy imbalance that has been allowed to continue without being brought to an end. The way to not get into this type of depletion is to understand how the energy exchange in relationships functions and be able to see when a balance is being established. Understanding these dynamics enables you to intervene before they cause burnout. Having boundaries, being concise with what you will and will not do, and learning how to guard your energy can all work to build balance once again in these situations. By paying attention to taking the conscious action to notice your interactions and noticing how your energy becomes unbalanced around other people, you can start to pick up on when an exchange is getting one-sided and take the conscious action to even it out. These imbalances most typically are in a relationship when an individual unconsciously depends on another person to manage their emotions. Someone who does not wish to resolve their problems may shift them over to a more knowledgeable partner in hopes of being shown infinite care without reciprocation. Such is the dynamic where one gives forever and the other takes, much like a battery that runs itself down without ever being given a recharge. Over time, such imbalance can break down relations and lead to burnout and resentment, along with even physiological expressions of tension. Jung's note on this process indicates the importance of awareness in managing interpersonal energy transactions. Knowing when an exchange leaves one drained is the start of regaining balance. Setting boundaries, taking care of oneself, and discovering relationships that facilitate mutual energetic flow can avoid the kind of exhaustion that results from continuous imbalance. One of Jung's greatest contributions to psychology is his theory of projection, a process that can be very powerful over our emotional psyche, especially when working with energy-sucking relationships. Projection happens when individuals unconsciously give up parts of themselves they don't want or can't tolerate. Instead of taking ownership or integrating these parts of themselves, they put them in others. This psychological effect can be a valid explanation of why certain individuals sap your energy without any apparent conflict or opposition. For instance, if someone is extremely insecure, instead of facing their own fear and doubt, they will deflect these feelings onto other people, generating an atmosphere of tension or apprehension. The insecure individual unknowingly transfers their emotional load onto other people, and these other people must manage the fear of these deflected anxieties. Similarly, someone who suppresses anger will attempt to have others feel it for them in a situation where anger would be out of place or misplaced. This passive transfer of emotion might make the other individual uncomfortable or even angry without fully understanding why. In the same manner, someone who is powerless might attempt to manipulate or bully others into taking control of their destiny, essentially passing on their emotional weight to another individual. In both instances, the individual who is projecting their emotions is dumping their inner conflict, exhausting the energy of others in the process. Jung's position is also supported by modern neuroscience, which has found the mechanism of emotional contagion. This refers to the belief that feelings can be passed on readily from person to person as easily as a virus is passed on with only contact. The mechanism is carried out through brain mirror neurons, which allow us to mirror other people's states of emotions unconsciously. Though it increases our empathy and enables us to sympathize with others, it makes us vulnerable to accepting negative emotions as well. Once you realize that you are in the company of a bitter, negative, or anxious individual, chances are that you're picking up on these without even being conscious of it. Your emotional contagion will ultimately have you shifting your own mood so that you tense up, become anxious, or despair, although initially you had been cheerful and at ease. When we are not aware of these dynamics, we can end up in relationships in which we are having our energy constantly drained, not always through outright conflict, but through the unconscious trading of emotional burdens. Knowing when it is happening and knowing about the unconscious energies involved can enable us to protect our emotional well-being. By being more aware of what we are unconsciously taking on or projecting onto others, we can actually do something about taking back our own energy and setting boundaries where we need to, and not draining ourselves from the emotions of others. The foundation of Jungian thinking is the idea of the shadow, all that we are which we suppress, those parts of us we deny or fear. When individuals do not engage with their shadow, it expresses itself indirectly through their behavior, and it will usually impact others in manipulative or draining ways. So a person who will not own their aggression will become passive-aggressive and cause tension. A person who will not own vulnerability will indirectly demand that others offer them emotional support while denying their own needs. And again, in Jung's words, so well said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. People who are unconscious of their shadow still perpetuate patterns of energetic imbalance in relationships. Jung identified recurring patterns in individuals who drain energy from others. The victim whines continuously about their plight, but rejects any resolution offered to them, creating a cycle of dependency where they fish for attention and sympathy while drawing others into the vortex of negativity. Their powerlessness can leave others in their vicinity helpless and drained emotionally, as their sympathy is extended time and again with no hope of resolution. The narcissist becomes self-indulgent and self-approving, dominating the conversation and failing to respond emotionally. They are in awe but fail to reciprocate the same. Their relationships are emotional one-way streets, where they receive energy but never give it back, leaving others feeling exploited and devalued. The martyr gives everything up for others, but leverages this to guilt-trip people and gain emotional debt. They appear to be long-suffering and sacrificial, but their unspoken expectation of reward in the form of blind loyalty or gratitude becomes a burden on those around them. By repetition, being around the martyr can become emotionally coercive, as their sacrifices are always somehow linked. The manipulator uses fear and guilt to control others without direct communication, so their interactions are riddled with misunderstandings. They often twist words and situations to their advantage to make others feel guilty or accountable for feeling a particular way. Their tactics are sometimes subtle, creating an undertone of emotional exhaustion for those ensnared in their influence web, as they constantly question their own limits and decisions. The energy vampire craves drama and turmoil and requires attention at all costs, destabilizing everyone around them. They introduce conflict into situations in an effort to draw people into their orbit and feed off the resulting emotional energy. Being around them can be exciting at first, but in the long run leaves individuals drained emotionally from handling crises on a constant basis and being surrounded by high energy. These archetypes are unbalanced relationships where one of the parties always receives more energy than they give. So it is a relationship where exhaustion and frustration are the norm and not the exception. Being self-aware is crucial when it comes to protecting your energy. Self-awareness means being in tune with your body and emotions and paying attention to the subtle signals it sends you, especially when it comes to interactions with people who drain your energy. This is where the concept of energy imbalance becomes important. If you constantly feel drained, irritable, or exhausted after spending time with a particular person, Your body is signaling that the interaction is pulling more from you than it's giving back. This imbalance isn't always easy to detect, especially when you're caught up in the moment. But the more you practice paying attention to these signs, the more you'll begin to recognize unhealthy patterns and behaviors that you may have otherwise overlooked. The greatest thing you can do to protect your energy in these situations is create boundaries, physical and emotional. Boundaries are a sign of self-respect. They tell other individuals what is and isn't acceptable, as well as teach you how to respect your own desires and needs. When you're able to make good boundaries and know without feeling rejected or guilty, then you are remaining in your own peace of mind and emotional balance. Emotional boundaries are significant because they'll prevent you from overdoing for other folks or putting a lot of effort on them and getting no return. When you set these boundaries, you are doing what is required in order to preserve your energy and ensure that you are not being drained by other people. Secondly, the right sort of people to have around you is extremely significant in healthy relationships. When your relationships are reciprocal, you're energized and supported rather than drained. One of the main things about protecting your energy is that you have to be in your own growth, i.e., being congruent with your shadow, those parts of yourself you've disowned or repressed. When you become accustomed and accepting to those parts of you, you're less open to toxic relationships because you're less prone to attract or absorb toxic habits. The fuller and more conscious you are, the more loving and balanced relationship you'll draw. Remember, it is not selfish to protect your energy. You must maintain your inner peace and balance. By creating boundaries, doing emotional work, and doing your own inner development, you're ensuring you've got a reservoir of energy available to develop substantive, healthy connections with others. Finally, by protecting your energy and keeping it from being drawn out in abusive relationships, you're leaving space for something new and improved to enter. Philosophically, Jung's insights prompt us to consider the ethical significance of energy exchange in human relationships. Every relationship is an unspoken responsibility, a responsibility to give constructively and not suck up the life from another person. Sucking up the life from others is an indicator of underlying existential struggle. Being afraid to confront one's inner darkness leads individuals to unintentionally burden others. The imbalance between giving and taking reflects broader societal moves towards exploitation. The instructions of Jung compel us to grow up not just about our own shadows, but about how we influence others as well. By so doing, we move beyond reactive patterns and embody intentionality within relationships. Being aware of why these different types of energy exchanges are taking place makes you accountable for making more aware choices about how you engage with other individuals. Being aware in this way allows you to navigate through your social circles with more purpose, allowing you to seek out relationships that feed and charge you, and to set boundaries with people who drain your energy constantly. When you defend your energy, you're not only protecting your emotional and mental health, but you're also showing more advanced self-respect and spiritual growth. Defending your energy is discovering how to recognize when interactions drain you and having the bravery to walk away from those toxic relationships. It is also discovering relationships that energize you, make you feel full, and feel balanced. As Jung teaches us, awareness transforms our lives into something more balanced and authentic. In a world filled with energetic imbalances, let us strive for relationships that inspire vitality rather than consume it, choosing consciously whom we allow into our inner circle. Remember this, your energy is your life force. Protecting it isn't selfish, it's survival. Every relationship is an energetic exchange, shaping who you become. Jung taught us that our deepest freedom comes from making the unconscious conscious. By understanding these hidden dynamics, you reclaim control over your emotional well-being and transform your connections into sources of strength, not stress. Now ask yourself this: who in your life energizes you and who drains you? Awareness is your superpower. It's the first step toward reclaiming your inner peace, setting boundaries, and creating relationships that truly nourish your spirit. Take action today. Comment below and share your experience. Have you ever felt drained by someone you care about? What did you do about it? If you found value in this video, hit the like button and subscribe. Your journey towards self-awareness, authentic relationships, and lasting emotional freedom starts right here. Because at the end of the day, you deserve to invest your energy in relationships that make you feel more alive. See you in the next video.